Oh, well, hello there, and good morning, good evening, as the case may be, all around the world. On the show, we have Sisla in the back in India, Alessio over in Europe, and I'm over in California. So we are all around the world today. Night some places, morning some places, and a nice afternoon some places as well. So thank you for joining us today, Alessio. I really appreciate it.
I thank you. I thank you and Sisla for having me here online, and thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I introduce you, I just do want to take a quick minute to say thank you to our sponsors. Our sponsors, as always, are Sommelier Finance. We're building tools for liquidity providers on Uniswap v3. Please go check out sommelier.finance to see what we've been up to lately. We just launched an exciting product called Pairings that is the easiest way to add liquidity for Uniswap v3. So if you're interested in giving that a try and don't want to lose a ton of money and get really confused using the app.uniswap interface, come try out Sommelier Finance. And our second sponsor, as always, is OmniFlix Media. They're building a content management system that has integrated crypto features such as NFTs and ownership for artists to allow them to monetize their creations. Please go check out OmniFlix Network to learn more about their platform today. And so finally, Alessio, the Vice President of Engineering at Tendermint Inc., which is the company behind the Cosmos Network. Welcome to the show, Alessio. And do you mind just introducing yourself really quickly?
Yeah, sure. Again, thank you for having me on. Yes, I've been Tendermint now for a few years. Joined the company back in 2018. My background is in open source. I've been working with open source projects and foundations for like 15 years, roughly. I built out my career out of open source, and was ex-colleague of Jack when Jack and myself and other people on the team, we were those who actually launched worked on Gaia, the application that powers the Cosmos app. And it was an honor working with that great team back then. And now I'm leading engineering as a VP, the engineering division, which comprises of various departments. That's it.
You know, Alessio, having you come in from Debian, I think you showed me how to set up my PGP keys for the first time, and you brought a lot of great knowledge in from the sort of broader open source community. We didn't really have folks we had some folks from the open source cryptography world, but we didn't really have folks from really large open source projects like operating systems or some of these cloud projects. How has the transition from sort of traditional tech and traditional open source into crypto open source been for you?
Oh, well, to some extent, not so easy. So I would have expected it a bit easier. But at the end of the day, of course, blockchain is definitely depends. It's built on top of open source for obvious reasons. And I tend to define the blockchain space as open source plus, right? So it was very exciting to see. And I remember when I was brought into Tendermint, introduced to back in 2016 by this mutual friend of ours. And I was curious. I didn't know very much about the whole movement, about the ecosystem. And it's very cool to see how blockchain, at the end of the day, with the tokenomics and all the subjects and the problems that tries to resolve, that's why I define it open source plus, as in it's open source with the opportunity for projects to become sustainable.
Yes.
And that's very, I think, perhaps a bit rich, but it is what it is in my opinion.
Yeah, I really agree. You have a much longer background in open source software than I do, but for the few years before I started working in blockchain, I was also in open source, and we built an open source database at the company I worked at, and I watched 2 or 3 of our competitors get taken down by Amazon monetizing their open source software, and quickly realized how competitive and how challenging it is to run an open source business. But the sort of, I guess, weird thing about that is the internet runs on open source too. So
Sure.
How are all of these people making money? And that is what made the most sense to me about blockchain is this is a way for open source developers to build defensible moats around the software that they're building.
And I fully agree with you. And I think perhaps the most challenging aspect of the whole, journey, especially in the beginning, was to kind of, I always had some interest in economical systems, but I was not so much into it until then. I understood that blockchain is not just about software, writing code. Blockchain is about social coordination. It's about economics. It's about the tokenomics, how important that is, and how revolution it could be for society. Why? Because tokenomics simplifies, has the potential to simplify all the complexity around, say, companies, fundings, and governance structures. So it is still an ongoing learning experience.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way.
Yeah, so I think that's a good segue into what we're chatting about today. Alessio is the VP of Engineering over at Tendermint, has been growing that team and is hiring. But I also think that, when Alessio came to talk to me and he was like, let's do a show together. And I think a lot of people within the ecosystem and a lot of the comments that I read on various message boards and threads, people have trouble understanding what the core engineering teams work on and like how that work is organized and like who's doing that. And like Alessio is running one of the largest teams that builds the core infrastructure behind the Cosmos Hub. And his team works on a number of different things. So like, I kind of want to talk through what's the past, present, and future of Tendermint engineering and to help people understand sort of like what you guys do, which is critical, really important. It helps drive us forward as a group on a number of different areas.
That's very, very good question. So let's start with the past, right? So the past has been like I said before, it's been like a roller coaster. Especially over the last year, and then I would say 15 months. And as many people know, as you very well know as well, this company went through some changes that I think they were required. Because they were required for the company to grow. And I remember very well a couple of years ago, this company didn't manage to hire one engineer, didn't manage to hire anyone in I think within 10 months, 11 months, we hired zero.
2019.
Yeah. Yes, you remember that.
Yeah,
of course,
I do.
We were busy. We were crazy busy with the launch of Cosmos Hub. But when you stop hiring, that's a bad sign. That is a sign that something is not working as it should be. And so, of course, there was a loss of confidence, of trust in the company from the ecosystem, I would say, from, of course, Interchain Foundation as well, from all the partners, because we were not focusing and we were kind of crashing on ourselves. We were collapsing, literally. And I think it's an experience that many, even successful businesses, have gone through in history. As in, it happens, especially when you grow fast and you have so many talented people around. If you don't have rock solid foundations, and that boils down to governance, of course, and a strategy that allows you to keep acquiring more talent, hiring more people, talented people, and retaining your talent, you're wasting time and resources. And at some point, you reach a point where something doesn't work anymore, and people leave. And
I think, one thing that I do want to sort of chime in there with as well, that was, I think, a core challenge. Successful companies that have everyone in person have this issue too. This is not, we had this sort of like additional level of complexity where, Alessio lives in London, a lot of his team lives in Berlin, and then a bunch of his other team lives over in America, and we have close collaborators over in Korea. So this sort of like globe spanning time zone problem and asynchronous communication problem is compounded many, many times in a startup where you're going remote first. And, a lot of smaller companies where everyone works in person, the way that you can kind of monkey patch around this issue is by walking over to somebody's desk and just asking them a question. You cannot do this in a globally distributed startup. Everything needs to be written down. Everyone in the company needs to understand that everything needs to be written down. And like on top of the crazy space we're in and all of the technical challenges that we're fighting, like we were and still do also fight this change of cultures, change of time zones, and like deeply remote experience. Like it is a very different thing from a traditional company in a lot of ways.
I fully agree, and I think the pandemic kind of forced many companies, to actually face this problem and try to find a solution. So the thing is, yes, coordination, and also, this sort of dream of decentralize everything, including organizations. Now,
Yes.
decentralization, in my very humble opinion, is a beautiful objective that we should try to achieve. But at the end of the day, the path, the journey, it's going to be a journey. And
It is.
at the end of the day, when you work with a group of people, you need to trust each other. Otherwise, you need to build trust, and building trust takes
Yeah.
time and efforts. So what happened? We just rebuilt the company from ground up, and we started from the most important thing, which I think the values. So we need to. You don't need to set rules, but you need to sit down with the people and say, okay, what really matters the most to us? On us, Jeff Shiba, our HR, our VP of people, would put it is what would make you, to leave the money on the table, because that would be unacceptable for you. What is, where do you draw the line, right? You need to draw these lines, and this is what we've done. And once you fixed the foundations, once you manage to lay down solid foundations, then you can start growing again. And that, like the legend of the phoenix, we
Yeah.
rose from our ashes, and stronger, wiser, and more organized and more determined. So
Yeah, so I think that practically, for the folks on this call who don't understand, the company AIB, Tendermint, that Alessio and I worked for a while, when I left, we had around 40 people, and then the company went down to around 20. And now you guys, over the last year, have again doubled in size. You guys are back up to 50. And most of those hires are engineering to support the core mission of building out the Cosmos Hub, delivering value to those folks, and building the interchain. So tell me a little bit more about what's some of the key hires in different areas of engineering that you guys have been focusing on over the last year.
a very good question. So we have, I would say, the technical groups in the company, highly technical groups, are three. So engineering is one of them. Then there is DevX, led by Dennis. There is ecosystem development, led by Tobias. And these are three technical teams. They have different responsibilities, and they have different specializations. Engineering is the largest group by headcount, I would say. But engineering internally has a number of departments. So infrastructure and security. We have core technology. We have business analysis and project management. That's the three departments. DevX, as you know, DevX is the main, not sponsored, but I would say maintainer of Starport, the original developer and maintainer of Starport. Ecosystem development. Ecosystem development is a team whose main responsibility is to support the ecosystem, to develop the ecosystem. And engineering is, I would say, the technical backbone of the company. So our work at times is not even very visible, because when you run servers or validators, or you just deploy something, a piece of infrastructure, everybody uses it, but it's not necessarily visible. It's not interfaces. Core technology has been busy collaborating with Region Networks Interchain Foundation on the Cosmos SDK. We have done various things in the past. We also have Cosmos Cash as a project, internal project. We're brainstorming around various projects that are ongoing. We have this approach. We went agile. Agile as in, there is this distinction between agile and Scrum and Kanban. It doesn't really matter whether a team goes Kanban or Kanban, but the thing is that agile allows you to reduce waste, allows you to achieve agility. So what is agility? Agility is the way you the way you react to change. Just don't ever resist change. Always embrace change. And we brought in these values, transparency, which allows the team to build trust, the various teams to build trust and work together.
Yeah, so you said something that I want to dig into a little bit there, and this is kind of a newer organization. The technical team you mentioned is three components: core technologies, which is kind of what you work on, which I think you can think of as like the core of all of these various software systems, the most complex, that have the most stakeholders, that are the most challenging. And then there's developer relations and developer experience.
That's ecosystem development, yes, correct.
Ecosystem development and developer experience. So my guess is ecosystem development is more sort of what a traditional tech company would call customer success, right?
Sort of. Developer relations, I would call them like developers, developer advocates. Yes, in a way, yes, of course. They collect metrics as well, of course. They try, yes, indeed.
And then developer experience is almost like the developer marketing arm, where they build products that sort of bring in the top of funnel developers who are trying out the platform for the first time, want to experience what the technology is like, and are getting their first experience of Tendermint technology.
In a way, if you build the most performant backend, you still need a way to access the functionalities offered by the backend. So the VEX mission is to enhance developer experience, which means building more tools. I would say high-level tools. If you imagine these systems, of course, as they actually are built in terms of layers, the VEX takes care and puts first the user. And this is the way. This actually allows us to have a feedback loop between the core developers, the backbone that needs to develop, primitives and tools that then are used either directly, but not directly by end developers, so end users, but also by the VEX, to building easier to use tools. And that's what the VEX mission is. They also contribute a lot to documentation as well.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So, when I think of a modern open source company, these are, I think, the three key engineering disciplines. And honestly, I'm kind of shocked that more people don't do this. And it's this idea of make the product easy to use, help people use it, and build the core technology. And those three key engineering disciplines, I think AIB has really gotten right in a lot of ways. And I also think another thing that you guys do really well is bake design deeply into everything you do. And that's because Peng, who's the CEO, started as a designer.
Yes, the design team. The design team is just one of the most powerful rock band, I think. And the design team is led by Nas, and it's indeed they do a fantastic work. And one of the things they did recently is the link I shared, the slide deck we present to the European Central Bank, and they just.
Well, I think that's a good foray, and Cicely, if you don't mind throwing that link up for folks, maybe the link to Alessio's tweet, so that they can go check it out. So that's kind of the past and what's been going on in Tendermint engineering over the last year. So one of the most exciting things that I heard recently from you guys is you went to go present at the European Central Bank. I know you can't share a whole ton about that, but whatever you can, I know people would love to hear it. And if you haven't, I would really encourage folks who are watching to go check this deck out, because it really showcases what is world-class about the technology that Alessio and his team and the whole Cosmos community have built.
Yeah, no, I can actually share. Things. Of course, there are details that it was a face-to-face, virtually speaking, face-to-face, in person of a WebEx meeting. Yes, we were called in to share some of our knowledge with the European Central Bank and illustrate the technology stack. So the Cosmos technology stack. I would say starting from the foundation, so Tendermint Core, going up to Cosmos SDK. We also introduced Starport. We also showcased the work we did in Cosmos Hub in the beginning. So we actually said to these people that we made this proof of stake economical system, which works. Of course, it's not perfect. But if you compare the environmental impact that proof of work has against Bitcoin versus Ethereum versus our proof of stake, you see there is quite a difference. So the meeting went pretty well. I think it went pretty well. There was a first phase of presentation. So there was a slide deck presented by David Christian. the director of technical project management, and then there was a question and answer session where I addressed the questions asked by the European Central Bank. They were quite interesting questions. I must say, both sides come prepared to the meeting, and it was quite interesting. They asked about, of course, there is always this mythological important figure, which is the TPS. And I said, well, TPS is actually a number that is calculated. You can calculate in function of some parameters that you can set in the stack, and so block time, block size, etc., etc. So it was quite interesting. We explained IBC, we presented our vision, we presented the Cosmos Cash as well, and it went pretty well. I think we were quite happy. We did work quite a lot on it.
Man, I'll tell you this, TPS, it's one of those things, and I know that you probably ran into this before you even started working in blockchains. Some people, they're just like, I want a big TPS number. That's all I care about. And like, as long as it does all the transactions, like I'm happy. But you
can run it for no testnet.
Yeah, it'll be great.
It's fine.
I never understood that, but it does make me laugh.
That's a good point at the end of the day, because what we tell them is that the technology is so flexible. There is this thing called EBCI. Of course, we avoided to dive in too deeper because
this is what I think that the slide deck does really well. It provides enough technical detail without just burying you.
We knew that we needed to strike a balance between, of course, we are technical people, and they called us the technical people, right? So we needed to not brag or show off, but in a way, try to come helpful to them. So we shared information about BCI. We told them this technology stack is so flexible. You don't have to implement a network, a proof of stake network necessarily. You can actually, we developed the proof of authority module. There are actually a couple of modules, so you can do anything. People are developing hybrid systems made of proof of stake and proof of engagement. A network can be private, public. Cosmos Cash is an example of a hybrid model between public permissioned. So you can do anything you want because this technology stack is modular.
So I do want to put a pin in something. And Alessio, I've heard you mention Cosmos Cash a few times, and I have had people ask me, like, talk to Alessio about Cosmos Cash. I'm going to do a full episode with other folks from the Cosmos Cash team in about a month. And we're going to cover that in a lot more detail than this episode with Alessio, specifically on the Cosmos engineering side. So like, wait, we will talk Cosmos Cash at a certain point, but that's not the focus today.
Fair enough. A question. Cosmos Cash is an attempt to democratize the payment industry. Yeah. One of the missions of engineering as a division is to build bridges that can connect and link the traditional financial world and the crypto world, DeFi. That's one of the reasons why we acquired the Harvest and now the joint engineering team. Cosmos Cash is part of our vision, part of our mission, I would say.
But just a little tease there. Cosmos Cash is not just a software engineering project, and it's not just a software bridge. It's also a regulatory engineering project, as well as like a business development project.
Yep.
It is meant to be a out-of-the-box solution for any bank of any size, a community bank, a larger bank, to pick up this software and immediately be able to offer digital currencies to their users in a native way. And I think that the engineering part of it's cool, and we can talk about DIDs, we can talk about zero knowledge proofs, we can talk about all kinds of stuff with that project. But I think what is really kind of revolutionary is the regulatory side of it, because that has been where all of these projects stumble. You can get together a 5-person engineering team and build something similar, but getting it actually adopted and working through a lot of the tough regulatory issues, that's where the work is. That's where the real engineering is. And that is what has me most excited about Cosmos Cash.
Yes, I think you nailed it. And firstly, Cosmos Cash is a research project co-funded by Interchain Foundation, by the way. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Interchain Foundation for the trust and the confidence in this project. And yes, indeed, it is a regulatory.
I think the Interchain founding, this is very much within their mission. And if you listen to Bucky talk, like Bucky is all about these sort of like local banks using Cosmos technology to offer these really powerful financial products to users. And Cosmos Cash is, I believe, the purest realization of that vision that we have within the ecosystem.
I think that this makes sense. Yes, I did hear what Bucky said multiple times, and yes, I agree with him on this. And this is actually, the Cosmos Cash, the electronic money, based on the Electronic Money Directive, which is going to be part of the MiCA regulations that the European Union should issue. I think we expecting to come for us mid next year. The thing is that the money directive was meant to be an attempt to democratize the banking sector. We are trying to make this coming to the new world, coming to the modern area where blockchains are the most interesting and compelling technology.
Nice. So we'll talk a lot more about Cosmos Cash in a future episode. I have 18 million questions about that, but there's a lot of other stuff I want to dig into too. Specifically, like, what do you guys have coming up? You guys have been really crucial in sort of supporting and gluing in various efforts in the SDK. And I know that you guys are planning on some more focused improvements to the Cosmos SDK, as well as some of the other core pieces of the stack. And I really want to hear a bit more about that.
Yes, good question. Thank you. Yes, we do believe the Starport is a great tool. I remember where Starport was. I remember the first version of Starport that was shown to me by Dennis, and it was absolutely amazing. I was stunned by it. It was based on an original effort made by Billy Rannekamp a long time ago. Revisited, done differently, and done perhaps a bit better with no offense to Billy, of course. Just we have a team for it now. It's no longer one person.
The scaffolding stuff is hard and it's easy to break. Yep. And we had prototyped some early versions of it, but Dennis came and really did it right. And I recognize that quickly.
Just a magical product. So we want to support Starport as much as we can. We want to receive, you know why? Because so far Starport has been the most and the feedback loop that we established with Starport team, so the VEX, has been the most productive, the most important sources of information and feedback. And this is amazing. We should do what the client wants. That's simple as that. We should not try to convince the market which is the right way. So if the market says, "Hey, I want this," okay, let me try to prioritize according to your priorities. And that's what we are going to do. We are going to develop more components. We are going to develop applications. We have an incubated program. We have 2 projects incubated. We are investing with Tendermint Ventures in other projects. So we want to support our partners, which are incidentally Cosmos ecosystem partners.
Now, Alessio, this focus on Starport, I think, is really interesting because in order to really enable true modularity and better composability with a tool like Starport, there are going to need to be some changes that we're going to have to make structurally to the SDK. You guys working on anything like that? Yes,
we're working on a proposal. I think by the time this episode today ends, I'm going to have a chat with Freud, Emilia, and Jonathan Gimeno regarding whether we are ready or not to share some information, because we kept this a little bit hidden because we wanted to make sure the way we were going to communicate these ideas are correct and can be perceived and understood by the people out there, so other contributors correctly, and we want to make sure we were communicating what we have in mind correctly.
Awesome. So I guess to kind of sum it up, you would say your vision of Tendermint engineering that you've just pursued relentlessly over the last year is to make it as easy as possible for developers to spin up new blockchains, to support the ones that are doing it, and to bring those new blockchains to more and more use cases.
And to make sure that Tendermint as an organization is long-term sustainable, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. And that is a huge focus of the work you've been doing in the Bee Harvest acquisition and the key work that your team has done to maintain the hub, I think really speaks to that. So I'm really looking forward to that proposal, by the way. And the small peaks that I have seen so far are tantalizing. So with that in mind, we do have a few questions here from the audience. So let's see here. Oz E says, hello, great to see both of you again. It is great to see you as well, Oz E. Can we say Starport is the WordPress of blockchains?
Wow. I wouldn't take offense if you were to say that. Let's put it this way. But it's cool. Yeah. Perhaps the medium of blockchains.
I think that, one interesting parallel between Tendermint and WordPress has long been a remote first organization and has kept a small core engineering team. And Tendermint does very similarly, and they're both open source projects, which is really cool. Sure. Another question, I'm just looking for parallels. Another question, Aditya Surashan asks, does Tendermint plan to onboard people that are not developers but still intend to use Cosmos for legal tech or supply chain technology?
It's a very good question. We don't have similar plans for now. So the answer is no, but things might change in future.
Yeah, and Aditya, I would say the way that I got into Tendermint, and I think the way that a lot of people have gotten into the Cosmos space, is you see the use case, you see something that excites you, and then you go talk to a bunch of people, and you eventually find a job there. So I would encourage you to do the same. I think that there are a lot of amazing use cases for legal tech and supply chain technology, especially using Cosmos. And I would actually even caveat that by saying Cosmos is legal tech in a lot of ways. Like the way that we designed the network bootstrapping process is designed to be a decentralized launch under the rules of various companies. So like we are legal tech at the core in a lot of ways.
I worked originally on the decentralized Genesis under the supervision of Zaki, by the way.
Yeah, Zaki led us all in that area. And then the last question we have here is from Promid Rohit, who, by the way, Promid, every episode for the last 5 or 6, you have asked questions and they've been great. So thank you. I appreciate that. Does Cosmos Cash allow other public networks such as Akash or OmniFlix to launch their own stablecoin that can be regulated, powered by Cosmos Cash? Or is it only a framework for entire stablecoins to be launched by governments?
No. It's not at all a framework to allow governments to launch stablecoins. Cosmos Cash is on the stablecoin. It's a class of tokens as per MiCA regulations of euro one-to-one backed coins. So yes, it could be used as I think. Of course, I should ask the lawyers, but it could be used potentially as into a basket of currencies or assets that could back a stablecoin. Yes, indeed.
Awesome. So that's the last questions we have. Alessio, do you have anything that you want to plug before we wrap up here?
No, just wanted to thank you and thank Sisla as well for having me on again today. It's been a great pleasure. Yeah,
well, this is a blast. We're going to have to do a checkup soon. And we also have that Cosmos Cash episode coming up. So very excited about that. Also, for the folks who were interested in what Alessio was saying about Starport, I did an episode with Dennis about a month and a half ago. Check out the OmniFlix channel for that. And please go check out that, because Dennis talking about developer experience within the Cosmos SDK, just great. I would really encourage everyone to go check that out.
We're hiring, by the way. So
yes, Tendermint is hiring. And Aditya, reach out to me. I can try to hook you up with some folks in the ecosystem. But yeah, if you're a developer and you're looking for work or interested in Cosmos, we have a lot of roles within the ecosystem right now. And whether it's with Alessio or with me or with a number of other folks, everyone is hiring. So I would encourage you to reach out. And before we roll here, I just want to say thank you again to our sponsors, Sommelier Finance. Please go check out our new pairing products at app.sommelierfinance.com and go provide some liquidity to Uniswap V3. You can be cool too. And OmniFlix Media. Thank you again to Sisla and the team for helping out with the production here, and their blockchain product, I would really encourage you guys to go check out as well. That's at omniflix.network. Thank you very much for joining today, Alessio, and we will see you
Thank
guys
you.
next week. Thank you.